Welcome back. Before the break, I was talking to Mr. Aziz Toki, the director of this project, Central London Youth Development Trust. Now in our studios, we have a different guest, Romena Toki. She is the editor of the project called Faces in Westminster. This has nothing to do with the seat of power. This is about the people who live there, particularly of Bangladeshi origin. See, we are going to talk about this project in detail for the next two segments. Welcome to the show, Romena.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay. Now, what do you do? I mean, I know that you're doing something important, but what is it?
I do two things. So as you pointed out, I work for the charity Central London Youth Development, and I do some community research.
Right.
And work with the young people as a community worker.
Right.
And that's the real me. But I also am studying. I'm a trainee psychologist, so I'm doing my doctorate in clinical psychology as well.
Yes, it's very strange because last week I had a psychiatrist to see.
Yeah.
I must be going bonkers.
We do very different things though. The psychiatrist does medication.
I asked him what is the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and he said psychologists can't issue prescriptions as we do. they can suggest therapies, but we can do treatments. You see.
See, we do treatment of the mind through language.
Okay. Okay, now you have this, your baby, Faces in Westminster.
Yes.
You are one of the editors, I see.
I am.
See. Did you take part in the research project, or you just sat there and gathered information from the boys on the street?
Well, I was there from the start up until the end and the designing of the front cover.
Great, great. That's not you.
That's not me. No, it's not me. It's a good friend of ours who we caught on the day that we were designing the cover.
Okay. Now, tell me, how many the project workers or the field surveyors or field interviewers did you employ?
So, that's a wow. Lots. But there was a range of people. So we had a group of young people involved. So I'd say about between 20 to 30 young people were involved throughout the whole entire process.
Yep. And how long did it take in time frame?
Time frame wise, this took us about 9 months to a year for us to have the final published piece.
Right.
So
right. See. And what is the background of this project? I mean, particularly, the other guest of mine was talking about it.
Yeah.
But since you were more involved in it, so what was the background?
Sure. I think when we're looking at British Bangladeshi heritage, there's certainly a gap in that the younger generations aren't as informed about the immigration movement into Britain. I think a lot of the stories they hear are the stories that are told by the media and that are told by
but there a lot of work has been done about British Bangladeshis in East London.
Absolutely.
But not in Central London.
Yeah, there's not a lot of work done in Central London. You're absolutely right. But I think there's something about the stories that are told about immigration are stories that that show immigration in a very negative light. And what we wanted to do is we really wanted to challenge that negative light, and we wanted to show some of the truths about immigration and about a British Bangladeshi heritage that is actually filled with stories of strength and resilience and resources.
But any story has its own negative and positive sides.
Sure, but most of our stories aren't told by us.
Yes.
Most of our stories are told by other people. They're told by the media. They're told by people who make assumptions about our culture. They're not necessarily told by us.
Yes.
Whereas these stories are told by our community themselves, and they're collected by our community as well. So it's not just one academic going out with a very specific agenda. This is the community who had their own agenda and went back to their community and collected stories of their family and their heritage.
But did you really have this in mind, that how they are seen by others, or exactly how they are themselves, you see?
I think there was both. I think working in psychology, I guess I'm a little bit more aware of the narratives told about our community and how those narratives influence our generation and the younger generation. If the narratives about our community are that we come from extreme poverty and this country has saved us, that's going to have an impact on our generation of young people. Absolutely. So that concern is definitely one of the driving forces for why
But at one stage, most of the people who came, they were economic migrants.
They were economic migrants for a better life, but they didn't come from, like, not a lot of them came from severe poverty as it's branded.
But they didn't come here really as migrants as such, you see, because a lot of people I know, they thought that they would come here, make some money,
and go back.
Go home.
Go back to their beautiful country, quite rightly.
Build a nice home.
Absolutely.
But there we are.
But we're still here. But these are the stories that we have here, and this is the truth of our community. You're absolutely right. They haven't fled war and poverty where they're completely, you know, incapable of living a life in Bangladesh. In fact, a lot of them came here and they were like, oh my God, this cold country, what am I doing here? I need to go back as soon as possible.
Yes, you just said what I thought when I arrived here, you see. I wrote back to my mother that I'm coming home, and she said, you're mad, you're gone with a purpose, you see, and don't come back. So I still have money, I still my return ticket, I'll come back. See, I can't see the sun. 9 o'clock, it's you use the tube lights and the electric lights. Anyway, now in 2011's UK census, it said there are 500,000, 500,000 residents of Bangladeshi ethnicity. How many are there in Westminster? Any idea?
I can find out in the book. Maybe when viewers read the book, they'll find out what our exact statistics are, but I'm bad with numbers, unfortunately.
What about the viewers who are watching us and they would like to know?
If the viewers would like to know, I think they'll find some numbers in the book, but there's lots.
Yes.
There's a very big community of British Bangladeshis in Westminster.
The biggest concentration of British Bangladeshis is in East London.
Absolutely.
The biggest is in London, but East London outnumbers other areas.
It does.
But I don't think in Westminster, Central London, you have really about even half of the people who live in East
London.
London.
I think it's a very common understanding that a lot of the Bangladeshis live in East London, and as people will see in the book, a lot of them talk about the huge Bangladeshi community in East London. But there are you know, at least, you know, a couple thousand Bangladeshis in Westminster. And their stories are very different to the stories of the East Londoners. And actually that generation, obviously the generation has grown, hasn't it?
Are they more posh, more snobby? Or what?
Westminster has definitely had an influence. No. Their struggles were just different. Their hopes, their expectations, their experiences, the social environment, the people they received help from was very different. In East London, they'd started a little bit earlier, so a lot of the support networks were already set up. The people in this book were the people who set up their own support networks. So their experiences are still very unique in comparison to East Londoners.
Before we go too far in the discussion, I would like our viewers to have a look at the cover of this book. Can you focus on this, please? Can you zoom in, please? Right. Thank you. Faces in Westminster. What sort of methodology did you use for interviewing people?
We were influenced by general qualitative research, so academic research. We were influenced by it, but we tried to stray from it. So it was an oral history project. Our sampling was done very traditionally through word of mouth. So we asked
Did you tape everything that was said?
Everything was taped. Once samples were collected, a questionnaire was devised with the young people and with the help of other academics and community workers to think about what we wanted to find out from the community. So we were looking at hopes and expectations. We devised a questionnaire with loads of open questions, and then young people went out into the community with their video cameras and their tape recorders and sat and interviewed a number of people in the community. They
must have taken pictures too, because I see at the end
there are a couple of pictures here with them.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it was nice. We went over to their houses. We went to someone's restaurant.
Right.
We met them in, some of them came over to us. So we tried to create a sense of their own environment where they felt comfortable and able to speak about their experiences.
Somebody says, what did we hope to find? Did you find what you hoped for?
I think we found a bit more than we hoped for.
Right.
I think
What did you hope to find?
So I think initially we had some predictions about hearing loads of stories of struggle and of pain and of, you know, missing family and missing home. And there was certainly a lot of that. We found that. But we also found many stories of survival, of resilience, of support, of positivity, and the challenges that we were expecting weren't really the same as the challenges that they demonstrating. I think some of the biggest challenges were like weather and food,
Yeah.
whereas we thought it was going to be completely different. So that changed some of
To
our
tell you the
views.
truth, I think it was, you see, but because so detached so much in time, and your concept, you see, because everything what has happened in the past always seems very wonderful.
It
You see,
does.
we tend to forget the miseries,
Yeah.
and we think that somebody came out and became a billionaire or millionaire, so he must be
Yeah,
very good, you see.
Absolutely.
But ask him, what did he
Sure.
go through?
I think that's a very valid point, and we tried to explore that a little bit in our book. We talked about the fact that actually maybe, you know, it's been a long time and there is maybe some stigma attached to actually talking about some of those painful experiences
Right.
within our community. So for readers to still be mindful of the fact that we may not have captured every experience that people
Yeah,
have
but no,
had.
there's nothing wrong in accepting. Like
No.
I read somewhere that, I mean, there were several problems like housing, employment, racism, indifference.
Absolutely.
The weather was not kind. There were shorter days and longer nights.
Absolutely.
Everything was completely at odds against you, and yet
Absolutely.
they survived and they
Exactly.
surmounted. See, like you have mentioned it somewhere that. They hired beds by the hour, see.
Absolutely.
And when I was in Dhaka, I heard stories like that, and I thought that that is exaggeration. But when I came here and I heard from people who had gone through that, I understood that. But hats off to them, our salutes, that they survived that, they surmounted that, and they became successful, and they guided their children, and look where they are, see.
Yeah, exactly that. I think this is what we wanted to highlight. We wanted to show and empower the younger generation with these stories of survival, of resilience, of problem solving. Their problem solving abilities are just incredible. Like, given that they've come to a country where they can't speak the language, the way they solved problems was so creative, and some of those stories are definitely captured within this.
Right. I'm going to ask you in the next segment, I'm going to ask you, who were these people and what were their hopes and fears, and why did they choose Westminster and not East London, because that was probably more welcoming than Westminster, because it's so different to the culture that they left behind, see. Well, it's about time to take a break. After the break, we are going to talk about the same stories, but in further details. Thank you very much for being with us. Don't go away. We'll be back soon.